Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday, y'all. Happy Monday, and welcome to what I like to call Faith, Purpose, Profit FPP Live. Always excited to be here to pour into you everything you need to connect faith with purpose and profit. Those of you that are looking to start a purpose focused business. So, as you're coming in, tell me hello. Tell me name and where you're joining from. So, those of you that are in my Facebook group, my lipstick doing? I can't see your name if you're inside my Facebook group. So make sure you definitely write your name so that I see you. If you're here on FPP Live, meaning you're here on my business page, and I can definitely see your comments. All right. So, in full disclosure, this one, I have a lot of notes and a lot of reading. And it's really a continuation of something I started on Friday, those of you that joined us on Clubhouse. And as I started to study it more and more, things started to really show me so much great context to really help you grow your businesses. So as we have this conversation this week, I want you to know that you're going to need part one and part two to really look at your profitability, to really look at the form your business is taking as you grow it, start it, build it, et cetera, et cetera. Wherever you are in the journey, this conversation is for you. Okay. So again, the form makes a difference in your profitability. So what do I mean by that? So this conversation is really taken from Romans 12:2, which says, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. So first, let's talk about the first part of this Bible verse. And do not be conformed to this world. Now, the reason I keep saying conformed is because first, the word conformed means, by definition, comply with rules, standards, or laws. Be similar in form or type. So again, it says, do not be conformed to this world. The thing I think is interesting is so many of us look at what the world says we should do in our businesses. And I hear this from so many people, no matter where you are, whether you think, oh, well, I need to grow my mailing list. Who told you that? And you do. But for the reasons you're asking me is because you want to make profit. But many of you are looking at it from the wrong angle, looking at it from the wrong form. Or you say things to me like, oh, I need sales scripts. First of all, anytime somebody tells you you need a script, unless it's you scripting yourself, you're already set up to lose. Because how can you read a script and sound like yourself? So that's that's you conforming because someone's telling you what you should do. You know, the thing I think is interesting is when I meet people or when people hire me to coach them and I'm asking them all the things they've already done in their business and kind of where they are, they tell me things like, this person told me to do this and it didn't work, or this person told me to do this and it didn't work. But when I ask them, why did they tell you to do it when they can't explain it, and I don't hear explanation has anything to do with who they be, I need you to understand that anytime you leave yourself out, you're conforming. Because what you're doing is leaving what God put inside you behind. Anytime you think you're late, it's too late, or no one's going to pay me, or I don't have everything I need, you're conforming. Because who told you that? Some example in the world, so that means you're comparing yourself, which also means you're conforming. So I want to have this conversation with you this week because I need you to check where you are, because it will keep you stuck and you won't be able to get to the profit that God wants for you. Now, y'all know, if you've been around me, you know, when I say profit, I'm talking about the gain that you're meant to be in this world. There are a group of people waiting for you. So you're focused on the wrong form. You're doing the wrong things for the wrong reasons, which means you'll never make the impact your gift was meant to make in this world. That impact comes influence and then income. So I'm going to give you context to it all, okay? So the thing that I think is so interesting is let me say it this way. I don't want you to let what you can see con you, there we go, that conform, con you in what you're supposed to be. Let me say that one more time. I don't want what you can see to conform what you should be. Really conforming you is conning you. Because you're basing your definition on somebody else's framework, on somebody else's blueprint, on someone else's purpose. And it makes you a second-rate version of that person instead of you being a first-rate version of you. So I want to dig into this whole con conversation because think about even what con means. Con means to persuade someone to do something, typically by use of deception. And so as I started peeling back this whole con conversation, isn't that what the enemy tries to do? Think about the first example of the snake in the garden. And really what he did was he conned Eve into conforming. Oh, God doesn't want you to know what he wants, what he knows. So he's telling you not to eat that fruit because it's going to make you see everything he sees. That's him being deceptive and conning Eve into thinking something different than what God says. You know, this conversation and really digging into it, by the way, if I'm saying anything that resonates with you, those of you that are here with me live, give me some hearts. I'm here for y'all, right? I want to know, like I know, that whatever I'm sharing is valuable to you. All right. And so as I started peeling back this, I really started looking at now, hear me, anytime you are conforming, or you're feeling like you're too late, or you're feeling anxious, or you're worried, all of those things are rooted in fear. I heard people saying, well, I need to start my business. I need to hurry up because I need to make money. Yeah, that is called fear. That's worry. And that's rooted in deception because something is deceiving you to think that you have to hurry up when God is not rushed. Now, first of all, it's been in you your whole life. So if you weren't rushed before, why rush now? Why rush and do it wrong? Why rush and do a half done job? So to peel this back further, let me break down a couple of ways that fear shows up. So Luke 12:22-26 says this. Then he said to his disciples, this is Jesus talking. Again, this is Luke 12:22-26. Then he said to his disciples, therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, nor about the body and what you will put on. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which have neither storehouse nor barn, and God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you, by worrying, can add 1 cubit of his stature? If you then are not able to do the least, why are you anxious for the rest? Now, there's so much I can peel back in that. And by the way, I want to always encourage you to go back and read the Bible verses I give you. Let me tell you the thing that I think is so deep when you really start looking at who you be. The more you get to know about God, the more you get to know about you. Because what happens is God will reveal things to you about who you be. And the Bible verses that come up for you are usually things that you need to really work on. So as I share things, if this is resonating with you a lot, it's because you're dealing with that right now. Many of you are in a place that perception has you, which is a con place, or position has you, or all kind of things that are keeping you from God's promises or God's presence. So either based on perception, position, or God's promises and his presence. Come on, Lord, and drop that in my spirit as I'm talking. And it makes a difference in how you form your business. So you're forming it the right way. This is why I am such a proponent. I'm always going in on you guys to make sure your purpose is aligned first. Those of you that I'm blessed to coach and teach, you know that I'm a stickler and I hold the space and I go all the way in to make sure you understand what your purpose is. Because so many people that start their businesses, they start them from the wrong way. They start from a conform place. So let me peel back what my study Bible says about this Bible verse. So you guys know I always go into my study Bible to read for you. And I'm not going to read all of it because it's a lot. Again, this is Luke 12:22-26. It says this. Jesus explains to his disciples that it's foolish to be anxious about food and clothing because life consists of more than these things. So he's not saying you shouldn't have a plan on how you're going to eat. You shouldn't have a budget. He's not saying any of that. He's not saying you shouldn't work. But he's saying you shouldn't be anxious about it because there's so many other things you need to be concerned about in life. Then he goes on to say, worrying is foolish because it cannot bring about change to your situation. Worrying is foolish because it cannot bring about change to your situation. But the thing that's interesting, if you think about worry keeps you anxious. It keeps you stressed out. And what happens is when you're stressed out, there's no room for good to come in the middle of all of the cloud of stress. So the times that I was stressed about my business, and I stop and I go, okay, you know what? Why am I stressing about my business? This is not my business anyway. This is God's business. God, you deal with that. When I let it all go, is when I get the best flow of insight and intuition about how to move something forward that could stress me out. So I really want you to understand this. Those of you, I can't remember if I told those of you that came to my Purpose to Profit Masterclass, I remember, and this has been happening to me. I remember when my business first started, this was years ago, not first started. This was in 2007. I started in 1993. Yeah, 2007, because it was right when I was getting ready to get married. I had no money in my bank account. This is real. Okay. And I said, you know what? For the first time, I can't stress about this. I'm going to get married. I can't stress about this while I'm married. So I told my then assistant, let's pray about it. I'm going to give it to God and I'm going to go get married. And we need this money by this date. And I got married on January 5th. We prayed on December 26th. I remember the day we prayed. I got married on January 5th. I can't remember the date I came back, but I come back to a check, the exact amount we have prayed to God for. So I want you guys to get this. This is back when I still had a nonprofit. That check was for the nonprofit. I called the woman whose name was on the nonprofit. I was on the check. Some of you guys have heard this story. When I called the number, I said, hi, may I speak to this woman's name? And the person said, who is this? And I introduced myself and told her I was the CEO of the company and she had written a check and I wanted to call and thank her. She said, so-and-so died on December 26th. That's the day I prayed. I believe God does things to show us that is him. But had I stressed and worried, my wedding would have been horrible. I didn't think about it at all while I was walking down the aisle. And my husband and I had a whole week and we got married in Riviera Maya. I had a phenomenal time and didn't worry about it. And when I got home, the check was there. I can give you another example of, I remember my accounting team saying we need $10,000 or we won't be able to pay people this quarter. And I promise you, I know this always happens, by the way, when my next level is on the edge and the enemy's trying to get me to quit or trying to get me to conform and focus on what the world tells me I should do, which is do some hustle something, which is what's in my mind. And so what I told my accounting team is, okay, well, we're going to just have to trust God because nothing I can do about that. And I literally didn't worry about it. And they were like, well, we need it in 24 hours. I said, I heard you. Now, I knew we have money coming in a month that will cover us month over month over month. But the time in between, she was like, well, what are we going to do? I said, trust God. There's nothing else I can do. Do you know within like 5 hours of that, we got a client that paid $10,000 in full. So I'm saying that because every time I've gotten into a place where I'm up against a wall and I choose trust over worry or anxiousness, I choose to trust God and not what I can see, because conformity, again, is trying to get you to focus on what you can see. When faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. That's what that is that I just said. So God is always working in the background, but the world will tell us, yeah, nuh-uh. And the enemy tries to steal, kill, and destroy. Y'all know this, John 10:10, right? So he's going to try to steal, kill, and destroy. So you destroy your ability and propensity and even your birthright to live abundantly, which is tied to your purpose. And as you get the strategy and hire a coach and work with someone that's moving you forward, there are going to be things that want you to conform to who you used to be or the way you used to do things. When you're learning new and different, you got to shift. You got to do it in a different way. Okay. So another example I like to share on this is that's worry and anxiousness. Also, what comes up, tell me who you are who just said preach, because look, I can't see your name if you're in my Facebook group. So listen, the other way that it comes up is in doubt. So worry, anxiousness, doubt, anything that bumps up against those. And I'm sharing this with you because these are the main emotions that come up when you're starting a business. These are things that I know I've had to learn how to shift from. I know these are things as I'm meeting people who either I'm talking to you or somebody on my team is talking to you. This is what you're sharing shows up more than anything else. This is why, by the way, I'm clear that last year when God dropped faith, purpose, profit in my lap, that those are the three modules of my business. I'd only been focusing on purpose and profit. When God said add faith in it, it was so we could dissipate fear. That's not going to go away. But what happens is when you learn the tools to do it afraid, that sometimes you got to talk yourself into trusting God when you feel like, I don't know. Like, Lord, you must be doing something good I can't see. That's usually my prayer. I say it over and over again, right? Hey, Jenna. So I need y'all to get this. Regina. Just realized I said your name wrong. But anyway, okay, so fear shows up as doubt. So Matthew 14:25 through 32. And the reason I'm giving you guys these is I promise you the Bible is a book. I call it a manual for living. When I don't know what to do, I go find a story in a good book. And I let the example that others have paved for us show me what to do. And then when I don't know what that Bible verse means, I go look it up in my study Bible, which is what I read from. I have concordance. I have a spirit-led Bible that also has notes in it. I dig underneath it. Now, I initially learned how to do this because I took some Bible classes, yes, but I was doing it for me. And I realized God had me doing that for me so that I can stand in the gap now and help you do it. Did y'all hear my husband sneeze? He loud. All right, so with that, here's the next one about doubt. Matthew 14:25 through 32. Now, in the fourth watch of the night, by the way, this is Jesus walking on the water, those of you that know the story. Now, in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It's a ghost!" And they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It's I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to see Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand, caught him, and said to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Now, I want you to think about this in context of you being out on the water of building your business. So many of you are here with me, and I'm clear that what has happened got to stirred up something inside you and said, "Hey, it's time to go and start that business." And then you get out in the middle of the water. Now, when you first start, you're excited. Maybe God gave you a vision. You might have some initial things you've done. It's like, yes, it's exciting. And then you're in the middle of the sea, and there's a storm raging. That storm could be, like I told you, when I had both my storms, the examples I just gave you are about money. Which sometimes most times when you're in business, that's what the storms are about. And you've got to be willing to say, "Listen, peace, be still." That's where I believe that came from. I don't even know if that's a Bible verse. My grandmother said it all the time, "Baby, peace, be still." And I didn't understand what she was talking about. Now I realize what she's saying is be still and have peace and know that God is working. If you're doing the thing that God has called you to do, oh, he's going to work it out. Now listen, even in my study Bible, so let me go back to here. So Matthew 14:25 through 32. Here's what it says. Now this is, I only read parts of it, by the way, y'all. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him. They were in God's perfect will and about to enter a perfect storm. Okay, so he already knew. He said, "Y'all get in the boat, go on ahead of me." He already knew a storm was coming, indicating that obeying God can sometimes lead to rough sailing. Nevertheless, it can only reach you by divine design and permission. It can only reach you by divine design and permission. I believe that the things that happen to you, God allows it because he's testing if you're going to conform to what the world says you're going to do in that moment, because it's easier to go back and be that caterpillar. Now, I know you've been around me. I've been talking about this caterpillar and the butterfly. It's easy to go back to what you know instead of staying true to where God is taking you. And again, I remember working in entertainment, loving my job. And when God told me to do this thing in 1993, when I didn't know what to call it, by the way, I still to this day, some 28 years later, I still get a phone call at least once a year when someone's asking me to cast something or produce something with them. And I'm not saying I'll never do that, but it's got to be in alignment with my purpose. And even as I got clearer on my purpose, many of you know I had the opportunity to work with Steve Harvey years ago on his Act Like a Success division. Loved it, was great, was a full circle moment for me. Well, was that last year? It was right before COVID. So I worked with him on that in 2015, must have been. Well, in 2019, right before COVID, I got a call from his team and he wanted me to come back and develop all the programming. They were doing they have a new initiative now. So they wanted me to come back and develop all the programs. So for Act Like a Success, it was one program, easy. Now he wanted me to work with all of his talent he had with this new thing he was doing. And it was about 10 people. Can I do it? Of course. Is it in alignment with my purpose? Yes and no. Because now, and by the way, it was a 6-figure offer. So do I do it? And do I leave this knowing God has called me to serve people to start businesses? Or do I go and do that? Focus on money. See, I know now, and I said it to the woman that called. She go, "Are you sure you turned this down?" I said, "Yes." And let me tell you what I said to her. I said, "I'm turning it down because it would take my focus off what I know God is calling me to do right now. Because his work will take all of my time and all my team's time. So I couldn't focus on that check, even though it was hard to walk away from that check, I'm going to tell you. But I knew this is where God had me focus. Doesn't mean I don't ever work with corporations or big organizations, but they cannot take me out all the way out of this unless God says so. And because God was silent, I knew that that was a test. So you've got to look at how are you conforming? So I want to walk you through one more story, and literally, don't worry, part two, and I'll tell you where we talk about part two. We'll give you the other end of it, but I need you to understand conforming is easy. That's the difference between comfort and conviction. Comfort is where your conform lives because it's easy. But conviction is where the other side lives, and we'll talk other side in part two. So let me just break down this. So listen, again, I told you the Bible is a book that gives us direction. I believe it is. So even if we're looking at the story of Jesus walking on the water, my first question to you is, are you going to sink or are you going to swim? Are you going to walk on the water or are you going to let yourself sink? Are you going to put your trust all the way in God? Or are you going to conform to what the world says? Like, girl, you can't walk on the water. But that's not what God said. Okay. So there's an important story in Acts 16, and I'm gonna have to read a lot of this because I started peeling back this today and I was like, ooh, wee. So I'm going to read it because I don't want to miss any of it. So this Acts, the 16th chapter, there's a story of two business women. I think it's funny that it's two business women. God led me to this today. And 98% of my clients are women. I always say I serve women and a few good men. So fellas, don't think you're going to miss your blessing because I just said women, right? So again, Acts, the 16th chapter. So first of all, and this is a time when Paul had a vision of God that he should go visit Macedonia and really go and preach in Macedonia pretty much. And he took Silas and Timothy with him. Okay. So they get to Macedonia, and upon their arrival, they meet two different women that own businesses. Now, the first woman, this is Acts 16, 11 through 15. I'm only telling you that in case you want to go read it. Y'all are quiet today, so I'm either going all the way in or Acts 16, 11 through 15. Okay, so he meets Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth. Now she meets them, and again, remember Paul felt led to go to Macedonia. Paul, yes, make sure I'm saying the right names. Paul felt led to go to Macedonia to preach, to convert people, to tell them about the good news of who God was. You with me? So he gets there, he meets Lydia, who is already a dealer in purple cloth, meaning she makes clothing in some kind of way. So when he tells Lydia about who God is, she is excited. And what does she do? She literally offers her home for them to stay in. Now, I want you guys to get this. Why is this so significant? Because number one, back then for a woman to own a house means this woman was wealthy. Okay, number one. Number two, when she offered for them to stay in her house, I want you to get how she was actually covering the work of the kingdom. So nobody said to stop making your purple cloth, girl, do that too. But she's helping the kingdom move forward because she gave them a place to stay. Y'all get that? So the sister girl was wealthy, doing good things. God was blessing her work, but then she also used her blessing to be a blessing. The second example is in Acts 16, 16 to 24. And I'm giving you the quick version. Okay, the first one was 16, 11 through 15. That was our homegirl, Lydia. Now, this one was a poor slave girl who was a fortune teller. Now, Paul met this girl, and she's Acts 16, 16 to 24. And he pretty much cast out the spirit that was in the girl. Now, listen, because she had been telling fortunes, there was a group of men that had been making money off of her because she was their slave. So they were pretty much pimping her. Y'all get this? They were pimping her to tell people's fortune and making money off of it. Kind of makes me think of the back in the day, if you guys ever saw the, what was the name of that movie? The Ringmaster with, what is wrong with me? I can't think of this movie right now. Somebody help me. One of y'all saw this movie with Hugh Jackman. And he was doing all kind of things that were just after a while fraudulent, right? He was bringing up people that weren't really like tall people. He had people walking on stilts. He was doing all kind of stuff to make it. He was conning people to make people think that these people had these magic powers, and they didn't. Even some of the magicians back then had all these schemes they would do. So this woman probably was doing some of that. And when Paul pulls out this spirit from her, then the men realize she can no longer do that thing she used to do. And again, they were pimping her gifts. So they get mad at Paul and pretty much put all of them in jail. Y'all with me? So it was in that jail, and we hear this all the time. Acts 16:25. But at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. So even despite the fact that they went through all of that, Paul never lost his focus. He still kept praising God despite the storm he was in, which was being in jail. And because he kept praising God, he actually converted the jailer and all of his family, and he was released. Why am I telling you this story? Because obviously the wealthy men realized, people started realizing, oh, that was a con y'all had going. And they started making no money because they were doing it for the wrong reasons. Y'all see where I'm going with this, right? So you can either glorify God or you can focus on selfish motives. So it makes a difference. Like, you guys remember Miss Cleo back in the day? Who knows if Miss Cleo was even real? Y'all remember the 800 number you can call in. And anytime I ever heard anybody say they were calling Miss Cleo, they were doing it based on something they were afraid of, worried about, anxious about, doubting, which is already a con present. Y'all get me? Even if we look at drug dealers. Now, I'm not knocking, I'm not sitting in judgment about anybody, but here's the thing about a drug dealer. A drug dealer is doing what they do based on material gain. And how are they giving back to the world? It ain't good. Because what they're doing is selling drugs to people that then get hooked on drugs. Do I need to continue to go on and on? So you've got to really realize, what con are you running? Are you conforming? Or are you going after your conviction? Because you're doing one or the other. And every time you let doubt, fear, anxiety, or something someone else tells you to do, when you let that guide you, or you're looking at what's in your bank account today, listen, God wants you to be wealthy. But just like Lydia, my girl, it's funny that she has a name. They called the other girl a slave girl in the Bible, but Lydia's name is said because Lydia used her profit to do good. Y'all see the difference? And so you've got to start to look at, what form is your business taking? What form are you looking at around your profit? So as we dig in this more and more, I really want you to understand. I want you to focus on experiencing not the world's best for you, but God's best for you. Which means you got to focus on living as the highest and best version of who God created you to be. So that's it for this first part. Listen, I'm going to dig into the second form. So the Bible verse, again, that is our focus for this conversation is Romans 12:2. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So what do I mean by transformed? And what do I mean by renewing of your mind? Oh, we'll talk about that in part 2. So as you know, we dig deeper tomorrow morning in Clubhouse. And the thing I absolutely love about Clubhouse is I want to hear from you if you have questions, if you need support with the con, because many of you guys haven't started your business because the world is saying, oh, you can't make money doing that. Or you need to stay here, and because you have kids in school and you need to pay for that. Nobody's telling you to quit your job. There's a way you can do that thing God's calling you to do and not leave your daytime job so you can eat. Again, what does that Bible verse say? Don't worry about how you're going to eat. Because God has given you a way to do all of that. You just got to learn to be able to do all of it in a way that will allow you to serve and not conform. It's all about what I teach, right? So we'll talk about that tomorrow morning, Clubhouse, 8:30 a.m. EST, to really dig in further so that you're making sure you're digging in. Well, I want to make sure we dig into both sides of the form because there's 2 forms you choose from. I just digged all the way in conform. Tomorrow we're going to dig into transform, the other form, and how that speaks to your ability to profit. Because God is never coming for who you already are. He's coming for who you have not yet become. So as we look at the examples we talked about today, Lydia, who transformed. She transformed and grew and offered her gift as a gift to the kingdom. And the slave girl who had conformed. And as soon as the spell was gone and all the work that she and the men had been doing, all their money dissipated. because they were doing it for the wrong reasons. I don't want you doing it for the wrong reasons. I want to make sure you're being a blessing to be a blessing, that you are being all of God, what God called you to be, and that you have the tools to do it. That's my calling, to do just that. All right. So with that said, thank you for joining me today. I know it was a lot. Y'all are quiet. So I was going all the way in. So tell me one thing you got out of value out of our first part of this conversation. And then I want to know what you're committed to doing to not sink, to swim, and really to focus and trust in who God is and who He's called and created you to be. All right. So with that said, I'll see y'all tomorrow morning for part 2 in Clubhouse. Until then, have a phenomenal rest of your night. Bye, y'all.